We just wanna travel. We just wanna travel. We just wanna travel. We just wanna travel. We just wanna travel, learn and grow across continents and cultures to and fro. World schooling our hearts, minds and souls. The need to travel from our head to our toes. We just want to see something bigger than us. We just want to travel world. We just want to meet someone different from us. We just want to travel world. We just want to
Hello,
travel the
and welcome to the Our Offbeat Life podcast. This is no ordinary travel show. Here, we delve into the extraordinary lives of intrepid families who've taken the leap into full-time travel. Each week, we bring you captivating stories from globetrotting families, sharing their triumphs, their challenges, and their incredible adventures. From practical advice on homeschooling on the road to inspiring tales of personal growth and transformation, we cover it all. Our mission is to help you, to show you that an offbeat life full of full-time travel is not just a dream, but a feasible, enriching, and exciting reality. And, more importantly, we're here to provide you with the tools, resources, and motivation to take that leap into the unknown. So buckle up, because we're about to embark on an exciting journey. Let's explore the world together, one episode at a time. Again, welcome to the Our Offbeat Life podcast. Here's your host, David Cole. Let's get started.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Our Offbeat Life podcast, where we uncover captivating stories of full-time family travelers from around the globe. Are you dreaming of a life of travel and adventure? A life where the world is your classroom and your backyard? Then get ready to be inspired by today's guest, Deborah Walsh. Deborah is a digital nomad, project management expert, and full-time world traveler who has been house-sitting her way around the globe with her two daughters for the past 7 years. By taking advantage of housing opportunities, Deborah has saved over $180,000 in rent and mortgage payments, allowing her family to experience life in 27 countries, while only spending around $3,000 per year on accommodations. From million-dollar mansions to bare-bones apartments, Deborah has house-sit in some truly unique and surprising places. She's cared for over 120 dogs, cats, and birds along the way, all while providing her daughters with an unmatched world schooling education. Join us for this fascinating conversation as Deborah shares her family's journey, the practical realities of full-time travel, and insights into making this incredible lifestyle attainable, whether you're just dreaming of travel or are ready to take that plunge. This episode is sure to motivate and encourage you. Welcome to the podcast, Deborah.
Hi, good to be here with you.
It's good to have you. It's good to have you. So where are you coming from today?
We are currently in Merida, Mexico.
Awesome. And for those folks out there who haven't heard of you as of yet, can you tell everybody a little bit about you?
Sure. So I'm a single mom to two teenage girls, and we've been homeschooling pretty much really their whole schooled lives, but world schooling full time for 7 years. And yeah, I mean, I work online and it just kind of takes us where we need to and want to go. Well,
Excellent. Yeah, this is the lifestyle for that, to take you where you want to go.
yes.
All right. Well, we'll get into some more about you in just a minute, but I want to start with a little icebreaker lightning round. So, are you ready?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Water, coffee, soda, or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee. Okay.
Kind of combination. Coffee in the morning and then water rest of the day and evening. Yeah.
Well, you're in Mexico now, so yeah, water is like needed. I don't know about
Yes.
you, but I'm getting dried out here.
Yeah. Well, and Merida is like a desert, right, of Mexico. So it's 40 degrees here and it's just like killer.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
all right. Pet of choice. Cat, dog, something else?
Whew. That's a tough one. I grew up with dogs, so I would have probably the first half of my life said dogs were my pet of choice. And then when I was an adult, a friend actually bought me a housewarming gift, which was a kitten. And it's kind of a pretty bold move, right? Buy somebody a pet. And at first I'm like, yeah, cats just aren't my thing. Like I'd never had a cat. I didn't really think I was a cat person. And anyways, that was just the start of for the last, 25, 30 years, we've pretty much have had cats. We've
Nice.
rescued cats along our way in many different countries. So yeah, they're definitely their cats are kind of pretty special. So it's both. Yeah,
There
I don't really have a choice.
there you go. Okay. All right. Pool or beach?
Oh, beach,
Beach. Okay. City or country?
city.
City. Would you rather have unlimited free flights or a magical RV that can take you anywhere?
Free flights.
Free flights. Okay. And if you could hop into a time machine and visit any historical event or era with your family, where and when would you go?
Oh, well, yeah, that's a tough one. Kind of in our lifetime. I mean, maybe not really mine, but our family's kind of lifetime. I mean, World War II history, only since world schooling, I have found completely fascinating and learning about that has been so good. But probably beyond that, yeah, I would say like kind of the Victorian era if I was
Sure.
to go back in time.
All right.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of Bridgerton?
Ha. Yeah. My girls got me into that one.
There
Yeah.
you go. All right, all right. So let's talk about travel. So, what inspired you to start traveling full time with your family?
Well, so travel's always been in kind of my blood. So I did lots of traveling before having kids. And then when I did have kids, when I went back to work, I kind of had them pretty close together. They're 14 months apart. So when I went back to work, um, I went back as, a consultant freelancing because my thought was, in between projects, we could take a month or two or whatever and do some extended traveling. But that never happened. Like projects just kind of continued on and on. And I had one that just kept continuing and extending my contract for 7 years. So in one sense, it was great, right? I mean, lots of job security in one sense, and but it was still like all quite local, and those long trips didn't really happen. So then, I started thinking around the time I think my girls were like 7, 8 years old, if I could just move my work to being completely online or remote, and that was possible. I mean, digital nomad kind of stuff I don't think was as big then as it is now 10 years later. But anyways, I started to think I could do this online, which means I could do this anywhere. So that's kind of really where it started. And, I started to kind of work my way into having online and remote clients so that I could do that.
That's cool. Very cool. So, have you always really been a traveler then?
Yeah, since I was a teen. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. I think traveling is fun. I didn't really get into it myself until I met Brody. So, she's, she gave me that travel bug.
And there's no going back, right?
No, there isn't. No, there isn't at all. How about the moment you realized that full-time travel was possible for you and your girls?
Probably kind of, I mean, it all kind of that kind of phase or whatever kind of all happened within a couple of years, which was, the idea of moving my work online, which quickly came to, well, instead of, a month trip, I mean, if I'm working online, it could be for however long I wanted to. I was already homeschooling. So, obviously, if I'm homeschooling and I'm working online, like there's really no reason to be here, which I'm from Calgary, Canada. So, that's really kind of where it all happened. I can kind of talk about kind of my steps as to, you know, once I realized that.
Yeah, let's move into that. So like downsizing, preparing, all that stuff. So what was your process like?
So first was, I mean, and you kind of see it in the community, the world schooling community and stuff, which is, really get yourself set up for remote work and earning a remote income. So I took, a kind of a freelancing course on how to get started on Upwork. And so, started getting clients that way and building the online income through that while I was still kind of working in Calgary. And then, yeah, I listed my house. I was living in, I would kind of say probably an undesirable area outside of the metropolitan city. And so it actually took me a year and a half to sell the house. So it was just, like you said, lots of downsizing. And in fact, over that year and a half, it was a good process of, you know, cycling through everything of, keep it, store it, sell it, donate it, garbage it, whatever. And so I had a, kind of a bin system set up. And we went through like many iterations with the girls because they had, their toy room was like a kid's dream. Like
Roughly
they
how
really
old were they
had
at the time? How roughly?
7, 8, 8, 9.
Okay. So yeah, so
Yeah.
all the toy years for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, like, oh my gosh, so many toys. I think we had, I used to have, friends come over and whatever, and they'd say, oh, you could open a day home. Yeah. And that was like, yeah, that's not happening. That's not in my forte of, what I want to be doing in my life, having all these kids underfoot. But we did have a lot, right? So they, having play dates, hosting play dates was not a problem, just not going beyond that. So one of the ways I got the girls into it was anything that any of their toys that sold went into a spending fund, what would be their spending money once we started to travel. So and some things, like they're, kids. They think they're emotionally attached to everything. So sometimes an item went through kind of this whole triage like multiple times before, it really ended up getting sold or whatever. But yeah, by the time we left, they probably each had a couple of $1,000s for spending just from all the toys that, they sold. So that would definitely be kind of one piece of, advice to kind of get your kids on board is, perhaps doing something like that. So yeah, we just kind of worked through that process for a year and a half before my house sold. And yeah, and off we went.
Yeah.
And part of the reason for selling my house really was I knew whether our travel was going to be 6 months or longer because, when you first start out, you're not really sure what it's going to work into and evolve into. So the reason why I sold is because I knew I didn't want to live there anymore. And moving back into that area was not where I wanted to be. So that was really the decision maker for me is to sell the house or to rent it out.
Was renting really an option for you there, or why didn't you choose that one?
Well, the house that I was so the town that I was in was it probably more like, middle to low class type of farming community almost.
Okay.
And within that, I lived in what was probably the luxury estate. So the market for my house, because we were on such a high end of the market and the scale for that area, our buying pool was really low.
Mm.
So, and that's why it took so long. And yeah, it's just, yeah. And so renting also, sorry, that was your question. I had to go back to what you were, I was saying. Renting was, I wouldn't have been able to get enough rent for even just to cover the mortgage. I would have been losing money.
That makes sense. I get that. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
okay, okay. So, yeah, because a lot of folks there, that's the very first step that they're like, okay, if I'm gonna travel, should I sell? Should I rent? Uh, what should I do with this property? Do I downsize? What do I with all my stuff? And so that's like the very first step on everybody's journey. Um,
Yeah.
what was your next step after that?
Figuring out kind of where to go. So during that time, during this kind of year and a half period, I think also sometimes, you kind of put things out into the universe and it delivers, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So as I'm kind of working through, figuring out how to work online and, downsizing the house and how I was going to fund our travels. Because also the thing that comes with freelance is there are times when sometimes you don't have work or you don't have projects. So, what am I going to do in those times? I mean, me being a single parent, I had to really kind of think that part through as well because there wasn't a second person, right, in
Right.
our family that might be able to, keep the funds going if I didn't have a project. And so one of those ways actually what came and you know what, truthfully, I don't even know where I heard about it, but that's when house sitting came to me somehow online. I heard about house sitting
Mhm.
and thought, okay, well, maybe this is a way to help offset some of those costs. And so before leaving, we got into that.
So when you did get
We're
into
not
that,
yet.
okay, because if that was the next step, because did you do some house sitting around Canada first, or was your first one at someplace exotic?
Nope. So knowing that I wanted to kind of use international house sitting as a way to offset our travel expenses, I also knew that to get any of those, I needed some references. So I just started, I joined a platform. I was on Facebook groups and that kind of thing. And really I think it was initially through Facebook groups, people Christmas time looking for a pet sitter. And so, I'd contact them and say, I'd be happy to, take care of your dog. If you can give us, as long as you think we did a good job, give us a review on this certain platform. And so we did a few of those to get the references. And then it was like throwing a dart at, a world map. So I just started applying internationally. Once I knew the house had sold, or
Mhm.
actually, I don't think the house had even sold yet. It was still for sale. But so one of the things was I finally got to the point pretty close to just after a year of the house being for sale. I finally decided, you know what? If the house does not sell in 6 months, I'm going to empty it and leave and sell it empty because I was just so ready to go. So at that same time, I just started applying internationally and like all over the world and just figured wherever we get our first sit is that's where we start.
Okay.
And so that's how
Nice.
that happened. And it ended up being Australia.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a very similar story along those lines as, on getting started with the sitting and stuff. But let's rewind for 1 second because
Yep.
there might be some folks out there listening who are like, "What is this? What is house sitting?
Oh,
What
sure.
exactly does that entail?" And things like that. So, can you give us a high level overview of that?
Sure. So house sitting really is, families, homeowners who are going away, whether it's a, short period or extended period of time that need someone to watch over their pets and or their house. So we as it's a fair exchange. We don't take money exchange for this. So in exchange for accommodations, we will move into somebody's home and take care of their home and their pets. So really everything that a homeowner would do from, daily pet care, the daily home care, if there's a pool, we do pool maintenance. If we're in the Arctic somewhere, which I try not to be anymore in the winter because I now have that choice. And, there's snow shoveling and, like all of the things that come with your normal day to day home maintenance. And yeah, so, I mean, you know, s- initially we were probably doing some shorter term ones, but, we've gotten also into some really long term ones, like, a year long house sits.
Wow.
So it comes kind of in all shapes and sizes, really. Some with pets, some without pets.
A year-long one sounds daunting, especially with visa requirements and things like that. So, was that somewhere in Canada or somewhere where you had, or what was that one like?
Right. Well, too. So the one in Canada actually was, yes, we did one in Canada, COVID. So when we went back to Canada when COVID hit, we we rented initially for 3 months because everything was kind of on lockdown, and we were really just trying to, in an emergency situation, get somewhere and settle. And then I applied on this other house sit, and it ended up being, yeah, a year. So that
Wow.
was great. Kind of got us through that whole COVID period.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the one we're on right now is, well, it's not been quite a year yet, but if we were to extend, which the homeowners would like us to, then it would be a year, over a
Wow.
year.
Okay. So that's very interesting. So there's so many different types of sits that you can do out there. Can you give us like a what's your most interesting one, and which is like like the cringiest one that you've done?
So that's I don't yeah, I you know what? I mean, there's obviously various stories all over the place. We've had some where we got there and there was like literally no furniture. Like it was a blow up mattress on the floor. This was in actually Australia, not the
Okay.
first one we went for, but another one we got while we were there. And it was only 2 weeks, but it was like 40-degree weather and
Hmm.
no air conditioning, no furniture. It was a long 2 weeks,
Yeah,
let's say. So I mean, I don't know about cringy per se, but it was probably one of the most uncomfortable ones.
that definitely is
And
uncomfortable.
yeah. And then you know what? We did another one where I mean, this one was probably a bit more cringeworthy. The living conditions in the home were really not livable. There was literally years and years of dirt and grime and grease, and like it took 2 days of deep cleaning, just the areas we were going to live in because we were there for a month to just, the areas we were going to live in where I felt, comfortable enough that we could actually sit or walk or touch or
Yeah.
so.
So before you get into some of the better ones, what do you tell people now to avoid encountering situations like that if they don't want those types of house sits?
Both of those were we didn't have proper video interviews. One was a recommendation. The one that was dirty was a recommendation, actually. And the other one, we did do a video interview, but she had said that the way she had the camera set up, it was in the kitchen. And she was said something along the lines of like she couldn't move her computer or something. And we could do a video walkthrough another time, which never happened.
Mm.
So that would be, yeah, the thing is,
Red flags.
always do a video walkthrough.
Okay. Okay. So now I know from experience some of these houses can be luxurious and amazing and places that you would
Yeah,
never be able to stay any other time in your life without forking over a lot of money. So,
absolutely.
what's your best experience or something along those lines?
Sure. Well, one of our best ones was actually our first international one in Australia. We did a 5-week house sit in Brisbane, and it was a multi-million dollar home. The the homeowners, like were just like absolutely amazing. They had gifts for the kids and they purchased, excursions for us to do while we were there. They were just like really, they were just as much concerned or interested in the fact that we had a good time while we were there as they were going to, as, them on their vacation. And it was just, they're such fabulous people. We've become friends with them. We've gone back for repeat house sits a couple years later. It was just, but yeah, like you said, it was like a multi-million dollar mansion that, it was just their home was beautiful.
I love it when
So
that happens, and then you have new friends out of it too. It's great.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then we did a couple in Dubai, same thing. Like they were like huge mansion type homes. And, as you can kind of imagine, I suppose, I mean, there's a lot of money in Dubai. So the quality of living there is just like second to none. Like it's not by North American standards at all. Yeah. So, I mean, the experiences that house sitting has opened up for us, like you said, and places I would never, ever really have been able to afford to stay. Like crazy.
That is amazing. So let's look at some of the other experiences. Well, I know 90% of your time is spent house sitting, and the other 10%, tell me about that. What's that like? What does that entail?
Some of it's planned breaks in between house sits, so we could have a vacation as well, kind of thing. Some of it is, just dates not aligning and, got a 2 days or a week or two or whatever in between house sits that, we hotel or Airbnb. And then others are, I mean, whether it's a vacation or not, but planned things like, we've, obviously done world schooling hubs and meetups and different things like that. So it's, those kinds of planned breaks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. And now you've been traveling since 2016, so
Yeah.
getting close to 10 full years, huh? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
really cool. So you must have seen some really cool places. Like house sitting aside, what is your top 5 places that you've been?
Oh, that's hard.
And
Um,
and why were they your top 5? Let's go with that.
oh my gosh. That's gonna get difficult. So Australia for one. Australia, I just love. So I started traveling when I was a teen, but it was, Canada, the United States. It was car trips. Australia, even as a young adult, I was 20, 21, and I went to Australia with 3 girlfriends for 5, 6 weeks. And so it was kind of like, oh, someday to get back to Australia. And then, with kids, we've been back twice. So I just love Australia, the culture, the people, the weather. There's just not, yeah, I just love Australia, everything about it. I'd live there. I like it that much.
Oh, wow, okay.
So that's one. Ireland is another. Just, it's a beautiful country. It's, the people are nice and friendly, and yeah, just some place for some reason, my girls also, not for some reason, but just for the 3 of us. That's one country the 3 of us would say we love and would go back to. Amsterdam for another. Why for their just, the culture, I think it's so worldly in a sense. There's so many different, cultures and people of all, backgrounds and stuff there. It's such a clean city. Their waste removal system is like everything's underground. It's so cool.
That's
It's really, really clean. So all of the garbage chutes that are on the street for household garbage, you go and you put it in this thing and it goes underground, and the whole garbage waste removal system happens down there. So you don't
wow.
see it, you don't smell it. So Amsterdam, London. We love London. London's a great place for, the arts and the, theater type stuff, and to go for get away for a weekend or that type of thing. I don't know that I would like, to live in London like longer term, but London's a great kind of place to go for, quick kind of vacation cultural trip.
Okay.
And that's 4. I don't know what would be a 5th one. I would like to go back and do more of the Middle East.
Yeah.
That is pretty, yeah. So of
Have you only tried
interesting
Dubai yet,
places,
or have you been anywhere else?
just Dubai
Just Dubai,
for
okay.
Middle East.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, I recommend going to Bahrain. I was there in the military in my days. It was just amazing. So
Yeah.
it's small, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right. And I did want to mention that there was a time when we met back in Malaysia.
Yeah.
My wife and you, for the most part, we were there for a big event right before the pandemic hit, and then the pandemic hit, and you guys had to leave in a hurry. So if I remember right, wasn't your flight out handled by travel insurance?
Yes. So we had travel insurance with safety wings. And so when COVID hit and it was starting to become, in the immediate days before things started shutting down, pardon me, we were in Vietnam, and we were making our way to Malaysia because we were going to be meeting up with you guys there in
Yeah.
this whole kind of Malaysia kind of pop up in Johor Bahru. So, but we were in Vietnam, and I was like, yeah, because we had obviously already had plans and reservations for Malaysia as well. As things started happening, I was like, well, maybe we should leave because, there was talk about, closing places down. And so I started to look into flights to leave Vietnam. And it was a good thing I did because I booked a flight. And then the next day, Vietnam announced they were closing its borders that night at midnight. So, and we were on a flight that afternoon. So that was like good. And then during that daytime, we were flying into Singapore. And then Singapore announced they were closing their borders at midnight that night as well. And we just scraped by because we flew into Singapore, and then, as you know, kind of getting through customs and immigration. And then I don't remember, I think we got a taxi over. But even still, like, I mean, you're looking at a 2 to 3 hour window, right? To get
Yeah.
from Singapore over to Johor Bahru. So we just barely, I think we got to the condo there around like 11, 11:30 at night. So it was just like cutting it close. So yeah, we were there and not really sure initially what was going to happen pretty much as well. I think the day we got there, the next day, Malaysia announced that they were going to be implementing that movement control order. So I had really 24 hours the next day to go out and buy groceries, for 2 weeks. And, so we were kind of locked in, the apartment there. So I did that and we kind of set up thinking, okay, well, we'll wait out this 2 weeks and see what happens. And then, obviously, as the world knows, I mean, things progress well beyond the 2 weeks. So as that was happening, and, I don't remember all of the levels exactly, but safety wings under what was that clause? Un, under the the political, there's some political clause in the insurance, which was if there is a worldwide event where they declare a level 3 or 4 security measure implementation, then that political evacuation clause would come into effect. And when the United States declared that level 4 threat, that clause came into effect. But then they also only had 10 days from the date of, it became the level 4 threat to actually enact on the insurance clause. So for about a week, I contemplated, do we wait this out? Do we see what happens or do we go back home? And so I decided we were going to go back home. So anyways, I would use safety wings again in a heartbeat. Like that
Yeah.
whole process was simple, simple, simple. I made one phone call and they sent me a form to sign, basically fill out that, it was obviously the three of us on the policy and that I wanted to activate this, political evacuation clause. And then that was it. They kind of took care of the rest. They booked our flights, which that was another kind of huge challenge in and of itself because as airspace was closing as well during COVID, they closed all of the routes from Southeast Asia over to North America. They closed them that way. So they had to then rework all of our flights to go back through Europe to Canada. And then as and it was hourly, even multiple times a day checking because more and more airlines were closing things down, right? So, our flights kind of kept getting bumped and bumped and bumped. And sometimes I was actually sending a message to safety wings. And, it's only because of, the volume of what they were dealing with. It's not because I felt like they weren't doing their job, but I was also like pretty much multiple times a day checking to make sure our flights hadn't been canceled because I think they were like 3 or 4 days out kind of thing, like once they finally got booked. And they got canceled many times. So then it was kind of back to like figuring out scrambling and they would rebook us on some other flights, a different itinerary. But sometimes it was me going to them to say, our flight just got canceled on the one you had booked and we need to figure something else out. Anyways, it was like 70, what was it? My girls actually kept a timer. It was like a 90 some hour journey back
Oh,
from Malaysia to Canada because we went from, well, Johor Bahru, and because of the movement order, we had to fly from there to Kuala Lumpur, and then from there to London, and then to Amsterdam, and then to Calgary. So it was,
that's
and
a
with
bit
the,
roundabout.
kind of, yeah, yeah. But
Yes.
we got there.
Yeah. I could see some people looking at the map behind you and saying, wait, that's from there to there to there.
Yeah, yeah, it was. But you know what? Like, yeah, Safety Wings was great. Definitely will, there's other providers out there, but
Yeah.
definitely my travel insurance choice.
Have you used any other travel insurances else in the 10 years that you've been traveling?
Yeah, yeah. So I've used one underwriter out of Canada various times and also World Nomads. That was the one I first used when we left Canada. And then, at some point switched over to Safety Wings, I think about a year or two in.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, because that's a question a lot of people have is whether they need it, whether they don't need it, if it comes in handy. Obviously, it did come in handy for you in this instant. Have you ever had to use the travel insurance or enact any other issues during your travels?
No, we've had the insurance like through Safety Wings and through World Nomads. But we have found that's the only time I've used it though, because we had an incident in Thailand. We ended up receiving like top-notch care. It was kind of an outpatient service for my daughter, but she got bit by what we think was a spider
Hmm.
on her chin and she got really infected and it was swollen. And so it was considered day surgery where she went in and they, lanced it and had to drain it. And so that plus, medications and all that kind of stuff. I can't remember exactly, but it was less than 100 Canadian dollars. And they moved us to the top of the queue because we're foreigners,
Yeah.
so there were literally lots of people like in the waiting room and we were like moved right through. So didn't need it. I mean, for less than $100 because the safety waste is a 200 minimum per year, policy, whatever. So we didn't use it then. And then we used it another time. Trying to think where were we? I'm not. Oh, Indonesia.
In
My
Indonesia.
daughter got, yeah, my daughter got sick there. We think it was food poisoning. And so an overnight hospital stay, IV fluids and, different things. And same thing. It was less than the 200. So it was not a claim at all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's a nice thing.
it's,
So, yeah, it's good to have this insurance in case you need it, a pandemic aside. Hopefully, we don't have to worry about that again. But other major things. But a lot of times, you're right. In a lot of these places, it doesn't cost that much for medical services.
you're right. I mean, I think in a lot of countries, I'm not necessarily promoting, you know, not getting travel insurance
Right.
by
No. Yeah.
way of saying this, but in a lot of countries around the world, it's cheap. Medical care is cheap. Um, the US is definitely one that I wouldn't be going to without medical insurance, but
You and me both.
other places, yeah, other places it's definitely easy on the pocketbook.
Definitely. Okay. Now, we've talked about the way you travel with the house sitting, and some of them are long and some of them are quick. But do you prefer fast travel or slow travel?
Slow because I mean, I'm working online, so I need regularity for that. The girls homeschool and we're a little bit loosey goosey, I guess, on that. But yeah, that's just they're not good fast travelers either. They get really cranky. They need and they're very quick to say they need the downtime. So I prefer slow travel for sure.
Okay, very good. And then you did mention that you have to work. So let's talk about financing these travels then. So what are some of the creative ways that you've financed them over the years? Like, what do you do to be able to live this lavish lifestyle?
So I'm a project manager, and so really that's what I do. I'm finding not so much anymore. And when we first started traveling, I was getting a lot of my work through Upwork,
Hmm.
and then since then it's you know other types of freelancing places to just clients I've worked with before. So I'm not usually like kind of hardcore looking at cold calling type of situations anymore. But I mean, you can for sure. I mean, that's where I started, like, Upwork and just, applying on jobs just like anybody else. But that's really my sole source of income.
Okay. So yeah, and so this you're able to work around a set schedule and figure out your travel days based on that. And it just started with Upwork.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's actually a really good advertisement for Upwork right there.
Yeah.
All right. Now, world schooling, you've mentioned that a few times as far as your children are concerned. So, what are their ages now, and how is world schooling working with them?
So my oldest just turned 18 and my younger one is just turning 17. So we've been, like I said, world schooling since they were 8 and 9. And and again, kind of our curriculum is probably, so we're still registered with a board in Canada, but I would say we lean definitely more towards a mix of unschooling and then just kind of what we classify in Canada as home educated. But there's definitely over the years has always been the focus on English and math, and then the rest of their education really comes through world schooling. So, again, I'll bring up, the World War II history, for example. So when we were studying that, we took the ferry from England across the channel over to the D-Day beaches, just like they, did those years ago. And so that was part of their schooling was, researching that. And we watched some movies and so we landed on the D-Day beaches and we spent some time there. And then we also followed a route. So my grandfather, my girl's great grandfather, was there during the D-Day beaches, and he traveled the channel. And then he was part of one of the Canadian troops that went up and freed the first camp in the Netherlands,
Wow.
in the northern Netherlands. So we actually followed that trip that he did. So yeah, it's just, to try and weave that also into family history
Yeah.
is, it just sticks with them too, right? Like we were back home and just to kind of, I mean, I did World War II history in school and it was like, boring. And I didn't really probably remember anything until actually doing this kind of travel. And so a sister of mine, when we had gone back to visit, they had a couple of new dogs. One was called Juno, and the other one is, oh my goodness, I can't remember what the second one is. Anyways, but they are named after the D-Day beaches. And my kids picked up on it immediately. As soon as, they said the dogs' names, my girls both said, "Oh, after the D-Day beaches." And my brother-in-law said, "You know what? Nobody else has gotten that. Like, no one else has picked up on the fact that that's what it was." So, yeah, anyways. So that's really kind of how we educate is, you know, we do research on places that we're going to, even to the point of, how many miles are we traveling and I'll get them to do various math things. But I mean, now at, 17, 18 years old, they're really good with conversions of different currencies. And, it's just really kind of, real life experience as opposed to hardcore hit the books, textbook related.
That's really good to hear, especially for somebody who is traveling. And you wonder about your kid and how the education side is gonna go as they get older. And you've got one, like you said, 18 now, getting ready to go another route. Are they planning on doing college, going straight into work, or something in between?
You know what? She's probably like a lot of 18-year-olds who, in some ways, is not totally fixated on what she wants to do. She is and she isn't. I mean, it's kind of bounced around a little bit. But one thing's really clear is she does not want to spend tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars on an education.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. She would she will do a trade. She will work and do a trade. So one of the things that she wants to go into, she is saying, and it's been pretty consistent, is something in the emergency services field, counseling, a police officer, like when I say counseling, like working in like victim services type thing. And, but, she's also talking about, she's not going to spend tens of thousands of dollars or come out of school in debt to do that. So, she's looking into other things that, she's kind of started up an Etsy store to try and make some money digitally online that way to help fund it. She's looked into, there's a program in Canada where, you can do like 911 dispatch and they actually pay you to do the training at $32 an hour.
Oh,
Yeah. So the training takes like 12 months. So it's a combination of classroom as well as on the job training. So that would require her to no longer travel with us. Whereas another option, she was thinking of doing online university and she would still travel with us. But, then she's talking about, okay, well, she's got to figure out how to make some online money in order to do that. So, I mean, she's kind of looking at these couple of different ways, but knowing that she's not going a traditional university route. she sees her cousins who are, have taken education degrees and nursing degrees and have, $70,000, $80,000 in student loans. And she's like, yeah, nope, not doing that. So, you know what? For me, I think that's like a parenting world schooling win
Yeah,
because there are so many ways to live this life without that. And to live it
that is,
well, right? Like to live it well and with abundance without that hanging over you.
yeah. I mean, I think it's a common theme. I've talked to a lot of parents now, and their children grow up with this entrepreneurial spirit. They see it in us parents as we travel because I think most of us
Yeah.
are entrepreneurs. There's a few I've talked to with W-2 jobs that do this and try to work around a US 9 to 5 schedule. It's tough, but the kids see work ethic as well from even from those parents, and that's a lot of work. And so our
Yeah.
kids see something totally different. They're getting a different kind of education. And I like that she's already thinking about the ROI from her education.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's really cool. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see where she goes and if she continues to travel with you guys or what her choice ends up being.
Yeah. Well, she's frugal enough to think that she's thinking, obviously, if she stays with me, then she doesn't have to pay rent somewhere. So she's like,
Oh,
not liking that part of adulting. So,
get her
um,
her own house sitting profile as well. Now she's been on a lot of them with you. You can copy a lot of it
right.
over, and then she can have
Yeah,
her own
actually,
free
that's
house
true.
sits.
That's true. Really. Yeah. Didn't think about that.
There you go. All right, so that's really cool. Before we get into some advice, I have a little fun travel trivia for us.
Okay.
All right, so let's do this one. First off, Komodo National Park is located within what country?
Indonesia.
Yes. All right. Where is the Emerald Isle?
Oh, Emerald Isle. You know what? I feel like I should know this. Is it? It's like European Middle East, is it not?
Well,
No?
North
Okay.
Carolina. That's what they
Really?
call it. Yeah. Emerald Isle
Okay,
is
I
an
was way off. There's something else then I'm thinking that is anyways, maybe it's anyways, there's something similar to emerald anyways somewhere else in the
I'm
world
sure
over
there's a
there.
lot of Emerald Isles in the world. All right. How about let's try another fun one. Name the nations that share the island of Borneo.
Oh goodness
I
gracious.
know you weren't
I haven't
Malaysian.
traveled to that yet. I haven't traveled to that part of the world yet. Borneo. So the nation, like Indonesia, is that
And
not one?
yeah, Indonesia's to the south.
Yeah.
There's two to the north.
Is Singapore in there?
No, close.
Indonesia.
What borders
You know what? I'm
Singapore?
gonna say Malaysia.
Malaysia. There you go. So
Okay.
Malaysia and Brunei are to the north.
Right. And did you guys go there? They have like orangutans and stuff there, right?
We were supposed to, but our little man was a little young and walking for 8 hours a day for these hikes through the jungle that we were doing. It wasn't his cup of tea at 7. So he's a little
Yeah.
older now. I think we're going to be able to do it this time.
Oh, good. Yeah. I know when we were there, we were thinking that we might want to do that too, because there is like a jungle tour on a boat, like
Oh,
a 7 day, or I think you could do 3 days, 5 days, 7 days. You could do different durations, but it was like a boat. And when I say boat, it's not like a cruise ship yacht type thing. It was a bit more rustic and what you would think for the jungle kind of thing. But they do provide, all your food and stuff like that. And it was really reasonable. And I don't remember the name of it or anything. I might be able to find it if I was to look. But anyway, I was looking at doing that because, being able to go through the jungle and, orangutans all around you and whatever would have been such a cool thing to do.
but
And then we got, sent away. So
all right. How about let's do another one. What is the Mexican city known as the White City?
is it Quatero?
Merida.
Merida. I'm here. I didn't know that.
Ah, yeah,
I
because
know.
white limestone and all of its buildings, so they call it the White City.
Oh, okay.
All
I
right.
know the yellow one is close by me.
Yes. Do you remember that name? I
I
just
I don't know how to say it properly. Valoid?
Valodid. Yeah, Valodid.
Valodid. Yeah.
Yes, that's another really good one. Oh, so much yellow. I think I did a video on that one.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah. When we were there, we drove through that one, or there's another one over there we drove through that's all yellow as well. So I did, yeah, that's pretty cool. All right. And last, what is the capital of Greece?
Athens.
Yes. All right, fun. I like travel trivia with travel people. It's fun.
Yeah, right. We still, I mean, until you've kind of traveled all over, I think we're at 27 countries. So
Nice.
you get to some of those other
I
places.
think we're around 20. How many countries? Let's see here. 24 countries, maybe? As a family, I think Brody's got more than any of us, but yeah, because she traveled when she was younger too. So, all right. So, what advice would you give to families considering full-time travel and house sitting?
Definitely, I would say if you're looking at kind of getting into world schooling, the easiest transition is to start off with meeting up with a hub or, some kind of world schooling community. And there's lots out there that, are free or border on like inexpensive as compared to there's some really outrageously priced types of communities out there. And you don't need to do that. Like it's just not really necessary to, you know, meet some people so that your kids can meet some people and just really get that whole sense of community because yeah, in a sense it's a small community, right? Like I mean, even in the various world schooling groups, there's 60,000 members, there's all different numbers. But at some point, I think, you get to, you've met so many of them or you recognize names on because you've seen them online. But the easiest thing, I know when we first started, the first 3 months actually was pretty difficult for my oldest. She she really was just wanting to go back home. And I did include like we were meeting up with homeschooling groups in Brisbane, Australia, our very first trip. But that was one of the things that made the whole transition easier. And even throughout all of our, 7, 8, going on 8 years of traveling is all of their most favorite memories, I would say, is when we're doing these meetups and they're meeting up with friends that they've been playing with online for years or who they met, 3 years ago, 5 years ago in Indonesia, and we're meeting up now in, London, England. So it's really kind of, the world's a big place, but it's a small place because you keep running into lots of the same people. But that's the easiest and the most fun way to get into world schooling. And also from parents' perspective, right? Like, I mean, sometimes you kind of feel like you're out there on your own. Um, yeah, there's a lot of people back home who don't get this and don't understand. And, um, so, meeting up with other like-minded people certainly makes things a whole lot easier.
Definitely.
Um, so that would be my really biggest key for world schooling. And then for house sitting, yeah, I mean, I think, there's kind of a myth or, that house sitting was probably more, for retired people, the people have retired and want to travel the world and there's lots and lots of families who house sit and there are lots of house or homeowners who would prefer to have a family, like their pets have lots of playmates and, you're typically home more, um, and can provide, a bit more stability than, just being out perhaps partying or using it only as a kind of a tourist option, which, kind of translates to, are you there for the pets or are you there just because, you're in the tourist mode? So, we're able to offer that kind of, assurance to homeowners. And so saving on our mortgage, we've saved probably $180,000 over the last 7.5 years by house sitting. I pay approximately, 3 to 5 thousand a year in accommodations outside of house sitting. So it's really low. And yeah, it's totally a way to fund your lifestyle and travel. So, I mean, it's not that, we still have, obviously travel expenses and different things, but I'm just not really spending it on accommodation if it's elsewhere.
Let's highlight that again. You spend roughly $3,000 a year in accommodations, and
Yeah.
you live very well.
Yeah,
And
we do.
that's unheard
So
of to
like you
some
said,
people. Yes.
yeah, like, I mean, honestly, some people think we live in a sense, a luxurious lifestyle. It's certainly a very privileged one, I think. Like you said, we've 27 countries, we've house sat in 13 of them. And again, like all different things from, like I was saying earlier, some, kind of really, bare bones type places to multi-million dollar mansions. It's just, you know what? It's given us the opportunity to travel like this and to keep us going for sure.
That's amazing. Now, before we leave, can you tell us about your workshop? You've got this workshop you've been putting together for house sitting. Awesome.
Yes, because, as I was just saying, I think house sitting is just a fabulous way to, let families still be families, not be living out of, suitcases and hotels. And it's allowed us to continue traveling, full time for 7.5 years. So I've put together a workshop that will be starting up April 30th. And then I'll, kind of relaunch again after that. But April 30th is going to be the first workshop. And it just really walks you all the way through everything from how to get, build your profile, your application letters, all of the kind of, do's and don'ts of house sitting, how to stand out from the crowd to, templates to, checklists for onboarding, really everything so that you can get going and within, hours really be applying on house sits.
That's outstanding. That sounds like it's going to be a great starter resource for folks.
Yeah, I think so.
So very cool. Thank you for sharing with that. And we'll have links to all this in the show notes. So don't worry, folks. If you want to know more about all of this and contact Deborah, we have that down below for you. So, all right. Well, Deborah,
Great.
thank
Thanks.
you for being with us today.
Thank you so much. It was really pleasure to meet with you and talk about your travels as well. And I mean, like you said, we met up in Malaysia, then again, actually in Merida a couple years ago.
That was a big one.
And yeah,
So
yeah.
for those
So
folks,
you
those
just
of
never
those folks
know.
that don't know about it, there's some big meetups all around. I love the ones with World School Pop-Up Hub, and we've talked with Rachel about that previously on the podcast. And but they're really good. They're affordable. If you're part of Facebook groups, you can meet up with people for free, like Deborah mentioned here. It's a way of keeping from being lonely and give your kids some social time and make friends all around the world. So.
Yeah. Rachel's one, probably my favorite hub creator as well. We love going to their events or any of, the sponsored ones. So I agree with you. I mean, there's lots out there, but she's definitely one we always kind of are watching, where that pops ups are going to be.
Yeah, so definitely. Well, again, thank you for your time today. It was great having you on board. And yeah, we look forward to watching your travels and seeing where you go next.
Yeah. All right. Great. Thanks so much, David.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Take care.
A huge thank you to Deborah Walsh for joining us and sharing her inspirational story of full-time family travel through house sitting. As we've heard today, over the past 7 years, Deborah and her daughters have experienced life in 27 countries, saved over $180,000 by house sitting, and provided kids with an unforgettable world schooling education. From the challenges of downsizing and preparing for this nomadic lifestyle to the realities of financing long-term travel through remote work, to the incredible doors that house sitting can open, Deborah gave us an honest and insightful look at making this dream a reality. For those interested in following in Deborah's footsteps, be sure to check out her house sitting workshop. This comprehensive course will cover everything you need to know to get started, including building your profile, crafting applications, standing out to homeowners, and seamlessly transitioning into the house sitting lifestyle. You can find Deborah and stay up to date on her travels and house sitting workshops at the links in the show notes. And if full-time family travel is your dream, let Deborah's experience be the inspiration to start making it happen. Until next time, take care. See you then.